Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. We are here with Nate Lind. He is the author of Maximum Exit, the definitive guide for internet and technology-focused business founders. And he's a business broker at Website Closers, which is the largest marketplace of $1 million to $150 million internet technology and e-commerce businesses. So we'll be talking about valuing your company, selling your company, and all those things that go along with it. So, Nate, glad to be talking to you.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I love talking to entrepreneurs. I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, and I didn't know that what I had was something sellable until somebody came a knocking saying, "Hey, I want to buy you." And had a really fun, validating feelings that were just like glowing all over the place that what I did was worth it to somebody else. So I went through the M&A process, and boom, here I am guiding others.
Well, fantastic. And I mean, I love stories like this. And it took me way too many years to come across the type of advice that you give, which is that there's like the mad scientist mentality of being an entrepreneur. Like, I'm going to do all these things on my own and create this whole mess and like have this business that pays me forever. But then there are people like you who say, well, if you kind of harness that and had like a tidy house in order and had everything kind of nice and neat, where if the right person came along at the right time, there would be this kind of turnkey for them, and they could just like give you a pile of money, take your business, continue growing it, and everybody wins. And there was something in your book that you said something about like the best time to sell your business is when you don't need to sell it. So it seems like quite the mind shift from going from just creating something to kind of being ready to bail out. And then also there's like that kind of like selling stocks in the stock market feeling of like, I know I'll never sell at the peak, but isn't it better to have a business that kind of is easy and runs itself, that I could exit if I wanted to? And if the right person comes along, I could take that and grow something else. It seems like a much more stress-free way to live life.
Yeah, that really is the key to winning transactions, is that mentality where, yeah, maybe you don't get like the top of the market, like if you're selling crypto or you're selling stocks or whatever it is, but you want to be in the position to be selling when your stock is rising and when your company value is rising. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs that I've been listening to podcasts forever, and I'm on YouTube all the time. Real curious about things, and I have found that there's these myths that people have around selling a business. A big myth is, I'm a small shop. It's me and my wife, or me and a partner, and no one would buy me. That's not true. I sell, one-man show, kind of a one-man shop sort of businesses all the time. And but the key thing that all of these businesses have that I've noticed across all of my transactions in the last couple of years is that they're growing. They're growing their profit. They're growing their revenue. Profit's more important than revenue. And we'll if we get into it, I'll talk a little bit more about business valuations are on profit, not necessarily on revenue. But if you've got a business that's over 2 years old and it's over $300,000 in trailing 12 months profit, the last 12 months of profit, it's a sellable business. There are buyers that are interested in it. And the more you can do to tidy up the house, as you mentioned, and prepare it for the next person, the less work you have to do from the time that you sell it until the time that the transition period is done. But even then, we've sold some pretty messy houses in the forms of businesses before. That's not a deal breaker either. The key thing is it's got to be growing a profit. It has to be making a profit, because investors and entrepreneurs and acquisition entrepreneurs, they want cash flow.
Yeah. Otherwise, what's the point? So if you have this business that doesn't make money or is failing or is just sitting there, then why would someone want it? And so like when I first came across some of these sort of website and like business marketplaces like you have yours, I was really intrigued by this idea, because the way they position it is sort of like real estate in a lot of ways, right? They say like, well, you can find this company that's maybe it's worth $100,000. And then you buy it and you find kind of the missed opportunities, or you roll the database into something bigger, and then now it's worth $300,000, and then you can continue with that, or you can sell it. And like it's such a fun kind of concept, and it's just like it turns it all on its head, because this whole idea of accounting and taxes and IRS. And even in your book, you mentioned about like kind of reorganizing your income and your expenses so that way you can kind of have a clear picture on things. And like all that sounds scary, right? All that sounds work and boring at the same time. But then on the flip side, this whole idea of kind of being a cowboy and buying and selling, and that's more exciting. So how do we kind of tap into the fun of it? How do we go from dreading the expenses and dreading the numbers into what the fun should be of buying and selling these businesses?
The dreadful part is the financials. And I had a CFO who was amazing, who took care of all my financials so I could just have her hand it off to the buyer, during due diligence when I sold my software company. If you don't have that, Fiverr is a great place to start. I'm my bookkeeper now. I use Fiverr, and she's $20 a month. She reconciles my QuickBooks. I have set up my own rules in QuickBooks because I have the same expenses over and over. I pay the same subscriptions. I've got most of the same. I have to go in and categorize my income. It's not very complicated, and you can completely outsource it. There are bookkeepers and stuff that will do the dreadful part to you. You just have to make sure to tell them, these are expenses, for this and this and this. And if you read my book, I tell you how, like, label your expenses for what the expense is, not necessarily who you're paying. So like in legal, you may have an attorney that helped you with estate planning versus an attorney who's like maybe sending a cease and desist letter to your competitor who's like trying to knock your business off. The cease and desist letter, that's an ongoing business expense that even the buyer may have to pay for to defend themselves once they buy your business, from competitors. That's a legit business expense. You can't, qualify that as like, well, that was, a compensation to me as the owner. But your estate planning is compensation to you as the owner. You've got consulting for someone who's helping you do tax structuring and estate planning. That counts towards what I would list a business at in the seller discretionary earnings or the cash flow of the business. So simple things like that. I've got that one chapter I PDF'd as well. Listeners to your podcast, if they go to natelin.com/gift and fill out and basically I'll give you my whole book, but also you can just go to that chapter and see what are the things that you need to do, and then just outsource it, because that's the painful part of mergers and acquisitions is an income statement and a balance sheet, and it's mind-blowing how many people get frustrated or get stuck on that part when it can be outsourced for $30 a month or $100 a month to a bookkeeper who can handle it for you if you just tell them, do this, do a couple things. And if you're a bigger company and you're looking to sell, I do, as a part of my consultation with my clients when they engage with my services, I literally will walk them through this process, because I know that it has to be done in order to get the business sold. You can't skip it. But that's the one dreadful part of it. It's not very hard. We can outsource it. I can help you with it. You can find someone on Fiverr or Indeed or wherever it is that you can find any professional to do that part of it. And then on the sales side, that's really all you have to do. You give me the financials. We talk a little bit about, what else the business, does. So I can give you a trade valuation. I do a formal business valuation for my clients on the sell side, and then get them ready and prepped. I do all the work. We do the prospectus, the offering memorandum. We put together the whole package. Like a realtor preparing a house for sale, I'm taking all the photos, I'm writing the listing, I'm doing all the stuff to excite my marketplace of buyers. I do all that work. And then once we're listed, then I'm now pre-screening the buyers, just like a realtor is. Do you have your loan approval letter? Do you, why are you interested in this neighborhood of businesses? What's this business sector mean to you? That sort of stuff. I do all that work as well. So on the sales side, it's really easy. There's not a lot of work for the entrepreneur, the founder to do. On the buy side, that one takes quite a bit of work. We've got a lot of resources for buyers at Website Closers, but you need to be very financially minded. You need to understand how to look at income statements and balance sheets and start to value the different aspects of a business that are valuable. You need to be able to assess the parts of the business that may have risk that could compromise your investment. So you have to have an analytical approach to it, but then you need to know too, which marketplace do you want to go at? The lower marketplace, like you were talking about, the $100,000 deals, like on Flippa and MicroAcquire and BizBuySell, like some of those marketplaces, those believe it or not, some of those smaller deals have more risk than some of the bigger deals. So you have to be like really savvy to find out like, okay, how is this going to be valuable to me? Does it have a long-term trend of stable cash flow, or is it going down? Is it going up? If it's stable or going up, that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, because whatever the entrepreneur has been doing has been working, and you see it in their their bookkeeping, and then validate that with their tax return or with some other other due diligence that we go through to know that this thing is going to be hopefully turnkey and continue down its path. If it's going down, that's where all bets are off. Like you got to figure out if it's going down and the entrepreneur who owns it right now is letting it go down, or they don't know how to resuscitate it. What do you know that they don't know, and how are you going to really reboot that thing? And that's a total case by case scenario that it can be kind of fun, like Wild West, and shooting like a cowboy to see how to make those deals come to fruition in a really positive way. And there's some great deals you can pick up that way, but they're also a much higher risk.
Well, it's a lot to think about. Yeah, like are you catching a falling knife? Are you really being risky? Are you kind of maybe letting your emotions and your ego get in the way because you say, well, I'm a genius, I can turn this business around, but that end result there might be making too much work for yourself. And why not go the easy, simple, logical way that makes more sense, and that can be accomplished by asking for help, right? A lot of the advice you're giving here is to kind of plan a little bit ahead of time, to get some of these things written down, to figure out what's all the minutia, what are all the little things that you are doing in your business that you're not even really giving yourself credit for, and that can be outsourced by $20 or $30 on Fiverr here, and even by asking for help. And even like a website, like sellers and business sellers such as yourself, it's always positioned as sort of like a real estate, like a realtor sort of setup, where if you said to yourself, well, I'm going to sell my own house, like there's so much learning and so many steps you have to do. And you'd assume that if you were the kind of person to sell your own house and it was like your very first time being your own realtor, you'd probably make a ton of mistakes, versus if someone is selling their 500th or their 1,000th house, they would just be able to do this in their sleep, be able to get you the best deal, no conflict, no headaches. So it makes logical sense to do some of these things, especially it seems like it makes a lot of sense to not have to scramble, right? If you do want to get out of that business, and maybe it is on the way up or the way down, and you say, it's time to get out of this, I'm tired for whatever reason, you have to like give yourself all this extra work. Or if the right person comes along saying, I want to buy this business tomorrow, and your house is not in order, now you just have all this extra work dumped on your lap. So it makes sense, like you're saying, to get these things written down, get some of these things outsourced, systematized, and most importantly, talk to someone like you and say, okay, let's get this packaged up and ready to sell. And even if you don't sell it, it'll be a much easier business for you to run, and maybe you'll enjoy it even more. And so in our last few minutes of speaking here, Nate, stories are always fun, especially on a podcast where time is limited and we can't fit all the how-to in, but it's always good to kind of just get the pieces. So do you have any fun stories of some of these clients that you work with where it's just like a really good lesson or really good kind of tale to get us excited about this process?
Yeah, I've had some really, really impressive closings and some sales where they didn't value what they had, that it was worth something for someone else. I sold a footwear and women's apparel shoe company that she spoke with a local business broker, and they gave her a very dreadful business valuation, and she found me online. And I, without knowing what the other business broker had quoted her, I gave her a number, and come to find out later, it was worth 3 times as much as what that local business broker had quoted her for, like what to list the business at. And before you know it, we went through the process, and she got what I quoted almost, within about 2% of what we listed the price at. She got that as a wire at closing, and she just sings my praises with on YouTube about what I did, how I was able to deliver her nearly retirement. the amount of money that she was able to get out of it was something that was just an incredible amount that she didn't think that she could get. And so I love those stories. Like, these are situations for people that they're not valuing what they have to the same level that the marketplace does. And I love to have these discovery calls with people where I'm able to give them a business valuation and share really what their business is worth. And it is a one-on-one thing. I can't just say you're going to be a multiple of 3x or 5x or 10x or whatever it is. I need to spend about 10, 15 minutes on the phone with them at least. I prefer half an hour of their time to figure out how much their business is worth. And I would encourage anybody that's ever given some thought around it, please, you can go it alone if you want to. I can promise you, you're doing yourself a disservice. I was a real estate investor for 10 years, and I still sold my personal house with a realtor, even though I knew how to buy, flip, fix, dozens of houses. I had done that with dozens of houses. Still, when it's time for me to sell the biggest asset that I had, that was my personal asset, I went to a realtor who knew the local neighborhood, who put it on the local market, who got the best buyer for me, and I went that route. So for the do-it-yourselfers out there, you can do it yourself. But I promise you, if it's a larger business, if you're over, $300,000 in profit, you are going to do yourself a disservice if you're not using a marketplace and a broker to do it.
I agree completely. You make mistakes, you miss things, you'll get your eye off the ball. You won't have the same contacts that someone like you will have. I mean, it makes total sense to go with you and have that conversation. But then, as you know, from being someone who deals with money, people get kind of afraid, right? Like sharing their financials, or it's never like the numbers are like too high or too low. It almost feels like dreading going to that accountant or dreading going to the dentist. So if someone says, okay, that discovery call idea, that sounds good, but I'm like hesitant, what would you say to reassure them and get them to book that call with you? And like, do they need to have any specific like documents ready, like the income statement, or like what do they need to have prepared in order to have the most successful discovery call with you?
Yeah, I can't do a formal business valuation unless I have income statements and balance sheets for the last 2 years. So if you're on the cusp of wanting and having an inspiration or interest in selling your business, you must take the homework and the leap to get your last 2 years worth of expenses and revenue put into QuickBooks Xero something and categorized and itemized. Myself or buyers, like, no one can value your business unless we actually see what is being reported to whatever tax authority that you are subject to. So we need that. So yeah, that's the one barrier of entry, and I deal with this quite a bit. I can do discovery calls with people, and if you generally know kind of where your earnings are for the last 12 months, then I can help a little bit, but I can't do that work for you. But that's what bookkeepers do. But if you can get that part done, then I can tell you, where you're trending, how much you're likely to sell for, and I'm really good at it. It's all comparable based. So like a realtor, I'm looking at houses in the neighborhood. I'm looking at companies in your sector, and we sell 300 of these a month or a year. 3,000 we've sold in the 10 years we've been at this. I've got a lot of comparables to look at.
And do you have is there a right size business, too big or too small? Are there sectors that you prefer more than others?
Yeah, so the best size business for us is what our buyers want, and they want businesses between $1 million and $150 million in enterprise value, which tends to be businesses that are over $300,000 in the last 12 months of earnings or profit. Usually the revenue is sitting somewhere about $1 million a year minimum. So that's really where we start. We don't have as many listings that are less than that because our buyers want like real sizable, like income producing cash flow. That's our sweet spot. We focus only on internet businesses, technology businesses, software companies, e-commerce companies that sell consumer product goods, companies that sell, stuff that you might buy off of Amazon or through Shopify or WooCommerce or any of those type of e-commerce platforms. And then the universe that supports them. So fulfillment companies, logistic companies, call centers, software services that work within the world of the internet. If there's a credit card passing hands for either your company or your client's company, chances are we work with you.
Fantastic. And so basically the homework there is to get those last 2 years of the balance sheet and the income statement load it up into QuickBooks or Xero. And if your business is between 1 million and 150 million, internet company, e-commerce, SaaS, software, or some kind of supporting infrastructure of that, then you are exactly the right fit, the right candidate to at least have this conversation with Nate to see what your options are. Because for all you know, you might get hit by a car tomorrow, or you might have some medical expense, or might have to just make some kind of lifestyle change. Wouldn't it be better to have your backup plan already in place with Nate and his team and say, we explored that, and I decided at that time, I said, well, I'll have that in my back pocket in case I just wake up on the wrong side of the bed tomorrow and say, I want to cash out, or I want to make a change. Or even in your book, you mentioned that you don't have to completely abandon the business, right? You can sell it off and still kind of maintain partial ownership and things like that. But the point is that there are many opportunities in front of you. You're not just locked in to just being confined to this business that you've built until you die. You can fix it up, you can sell it, and Nate and his team can help you out with that. And so we mentioned before that link was natelinds.com/gift. So are there any other next steps here, Nate? Is there an easy way to find that discovery call, or places you just want the listeners of our show to check out next?
Yeah, if you go to natelind.com, there's a button that says business valuations. If you're curious how much you're worth, you can click on that and I'll do a business valuation for you. If you just want to read the book, you can go to natelind.com/gift, and I've got the book on there. Just need your email, and then I'll email you out the book, and you can read it. Any questions you've got, you can follow up with me. Like, Nate, what did you mean by this on page 26? I'm happy to interact with you. I'm very, very open and available, to folks who are curious about this space. So I would go to natelind.com or go to natelind.com/gift, and you can reach me in a variety of ways.
Very nice. And to spell that out, that is NATELIND.com. Nice and short, but still easy to make a typo. NateLinds.com. And as we're wrapping up our conversation here, Nate, it's always fun to think about if you have any kind of like a really powerful advice, or is there something that you wish you'd been told 20 years ago that would completely have changed the trajectory of your life? Does anything come to mind as far as like wrapping up our conversation, a sentence or two, really powerful lesson? What do you have?
Yeah, I started as an entrepreneur reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I wanted to earn passive income to have a life of freedom and affluence, to be able to enjoy the activities and adventures that would come, out of their relationships and with my family and my kids and my loved ones. And somewhere along the road, I forgot that, and I found myself working even though I owned the company, I found myself working a job in my own company. And it took me, I think, far too long to figure that out. And it wasn't until my youngest son reminded me, like, Dad, what's this all for? I want to spend more time with you, but you work a lot, you travel a lot. That when it came out of the mouth of a babe, so to speak, got me to reflect on what's my purpose? What am I going to leave a legacy of workaholism, or am I going to lead a legacy of spending really loving time with the people I love? And that's what got me to sell my first company. And I would encourage anyone that's listening to this, if you're an entrepreneur and you got into this because you wanted freedom and you wanted some affluence, chances are you may be much further along than you thought. And I'll bet the best way to put a war chest of money in your pocket to go invest in real estate or stocks or bonds or other things that are more passive is the sale of your company.
I love it. That's powerful. It may be time to wake up, especially if we can relate to that aha moment that you had. So Nate Lind, Maximum Exit, natelinds.com, and we will see you there. So thank you, Nate.
Thank you.